Babylon's corporate executives coldly order the operation to be temporarily suspended. They secure their servers and leave Jin-man for dead. They don't care if he survives the aftermath, but his survival is about to cost them absolutely everything. In a sterile, blindingly white hospital room, Jeong Jin opens her eyes to a devastating nightmare. Her protector, Woo Jin, is gone. The team hand her a pre-packaged lie, claiming his leg got caught in the sinking wheelhouse of their boat, dragging him down into the crushing depths. They hand her a brand new social security card with a fake name, Lee Yena. An older woman is beside her bed, urging her to simply accept this cruel fate, to move on and live tenaciously. But Jian stares at the worthless plastic identity. Changing her name won't stop the internal bleeding. She throws it back. She will stay Jeong Jin. Meanwhile, the global fallout from Babylon's massive information leak is escalating rapidly. Assassinations of high-ranking government officials are spreading, pointing directly to a massive, highly strategic operation. Babylon's executives are panicking, terrified of US and North Korean intervention. The ruthless executive Chen orders Jin to prioritize retrieving the lost server, granting him full permission to take over the Murthehelp business by any means necessary. Jian is relocated to a windowless, concrete underground basement. Her uncle Jin-man tries to recreate her old bedroom, a pathetic attempt to manufacture warmth in a cold world built exclusively on murder. The fragile illusion shatters the second Jian spots the hidden surveillance camera mounted in the dark corner. She didn't come back to be heavily monitored. She came back to fundamentally break the endless cycle of sacrifice. She refuses to let anyone else bleed for her. To fight a corporate superpower, you need an army. Jian tracks down a retired Code Red operative named An Songbyum. She approaches his young son, Suho, in the pouring rain, quietly handing the boy a yellow raincoat. It's a chilling, desperate power play to prove to the retired killer that his family is no longer untouchable, forcing him to the negotiation table. But dragging a retired killer back into the light is a terrifying gamble that immediately backfires. Seongbom corners her, his voice a lethal, strained whisper. He refuses to help. He screams furiously into her earpiece, promising Jin-man that if they ever touch his son again, he will violently tear them both apart. Jian's desperate attempt to build a powerful alliance completely crumbles. She is entirely on her own. She throws herself into brutal, relentless preparation. Deep inside the underground mall, Min-hae and Jin-woo train her to strip weapons, teaching her the lethal difference between a 9mm handgun and a heavy 7.62 caliber rifle round. They show her the biometric locks, the secret invisible buttons, the layered digital defenses protecting Murthehelp. Then, they show her the final, most terrifying contingency. A secret escape tunnel stretching 300 meters into the suffocating dark, ending in a tiny room designed for one sole purpose: to burn the entire shopping mall to the ground and leave absolutely no trace. Normal is officially dead. If she cannot run and she cannot hide, her only remaining option is to walk directly into the enemy's heavily armed trap. The enemy demands a formal, high-stakes negotiation. Babylon's ruthless CEO, Jin, and the deadly operative Q arrive at a massive, isolated warehouse. They fully expect the legendary Jeong Jin-man to be sitting across the table, begging for his pathetic life. Instead, the massive iron doors groan open and Jeong Jin walks in completely alone. Jin is visibly insulted. She laughs, telling her she completely lacks the status level to match her. Q mocks the orphaned girl, confidently stating that even if she brought 10 of Jinman's severed heads wrapped in a tiny bow, it still wouldn't be nearly enough. But Jian's voice remains hollow and dead calm. She offers them an unprecedented, highly lucrative corporate merger. Murthehelp and Babylon, working closely together, sharing vast profits and prioritizing weapon distribution, with one absolute, non-negotiable condition: Jeong Jin-man is officially stepping down. Babylon must spare his life and never, ever touch him again. Jin sneers at the unbelievably bold demand. She slowly leans forward and asks what happens if she simply refuses the generous deal. Jin doesn't flinch. She points to the high-yield explosives wired intricately around the room. They are linked directly to her unique biometric signal. Dead silence. If her heart stops beating for even a fraction of a second, the entire facility detonates in a blinding flash of hellfire. The desperate bluff is flawless, but someone is watching quietly from the shadows above. Jian stares directly into the arrogant eyes of the corporate killers. "Is dying something you're afraid of?" she asks. Suddenly, the entire warehouse plunges into total, suffocating darkness. High in the steel rafters, An Seongbyeom whispers softly into his comms. switching his tactical goggles to infrared mode. He didn't abandon her to die after all. He pays his long-standing heavy debt to Jin-man, openly admiring the sheer, terrifying guts of this young girl who walked into a lion's den wearing a rigged suicide vest. With Seong-beom holding the tactical advantage in the dark, the enemy is forced to back down. Jian's terrifying gamble actually worked. Back in the reinforced safety of the bunker, the sickening adrenaline finally crashes into a strange, intoxicating warmth. A makeshift family dinner takes over the underground kitchen. Pork belly sizzles loudly on the grill. Cheap canned beer is cracked open. Jian looks around the table at the hardened, deeply scarred killers who have repeatedly bled for her survival. Uncle Jin-woo, Min-hye, brother Cheol-sung. She officially breaks the old, rigid hierarchy. She fiercely declares that from this day forward, every single person sitting at that table is recognized as a code green. They are absolutely no longer simply employees or disposable assets. They are family. A beautiful, tearful toast is immediately raised to the motherland and to their unbreakable comrades. For a fleeting, beautiful moment, it truly feels like they have finally won the impossible war. But in a dark world built entirely on deception, a happy ending is always just a fatal blind spot. Deep inside a heavily secured, soundproof corporate facility, Jin watches with a chilling, predatory smile. She isn't angry about the intense negotiation, she is profoundly amused. The monitor screen violently flickers, revealing a bruised, horrifically bloodied face, chained heavily in the unforgiving gloom. Passin, the fiercely loyal Muay Thai master, is completely broken, coughing up thick blood as merciless, bone-crushing blows rain down on his shattered body. He weakly begs for Jin-man's help. Jin looks down at her captive, casually informing him that in return, he will now be forced to do a little work for Babylon. Jian thought she had successfully negotiated for their precious lives. She truly didn't realize the enemy was already carving out their hearts. When you play a rigged game against a monster, does winning a single hand mean you actually survive the night? Or does it simply mean you haven't seen the fatal trap closing tightly around you? A father and son argue playfully over pop music, completely unaware that the next few seconds will violently destroy their entire world. Parsin teases his boy, Ati, about listening to K-pop, laughing as the child calls him a liar. A sudden, brutal ambush of heavily armed mercenaries shatters the peaceful morning. Passin fights with the ferocious desperation of a cornered animal, but he is ultimately overwhelmed. They don't want to kill the deadly Muay Thai master. They want the terrified boy trembling, and they are going to use this innocent child to tear down an entire underground empire. 1 month later, a meticulously crafted trap is sprung. Jeong Jin-man receives a cryptic, encoded message from his highly trusted internal mole. The instructions demand he fly to Thailand alone to secure the precise location of Passin's kidnapped son. Deep inside the underground bunker, Jin-woo hands Jin-man a forged passport under the name Choi Myung-gyu, clearly anxious about the captain walking into foreign territory without backup. Jin-man refuses the help, explicitly ordering Jin-woo to stay behind in the concrete fortress to fiercely protect his niece, Jian. Before leaving, Jin-man looks at Jian and delivers a chilling, philosophical warning about survival. If you are ever in a combat situation where you lose an arm, do not desperately try to recover it. You must ruthlessly protect the one you still have. It is a vital lesson about cutting your losses in a war zone. But what happens when the severed limb is the person you trust most in the entire world? In Thailand, the suffocating heat matches the rising dread. Jin-man follows the mole's coordinates to a locker, retrieving a secure device that leads him to a dimly lit, crowded internet cafe. He is fully prepared for a discreet shadow meeting, but he is walking blindly into a slaughterhouse. A drone buzzes quietly outside the window just before a violent swarm of thugs descends on him with slashing blades and heavy bats. Jin-man fights with lethal, breathtaking precision. He drops bodies left and right, snapping bones and dodging steel, but the sheer, endless numbers are entirely overwhelming. A high-voltage taser bites deep into his flesh, sending the legendary killer crashing through the shattered glass, completely incapacitated. The king has been successfully removed from the board, but the real massacre hasn't even begun. Deep inside a heavily guarded, soundproof torture room, the sadistic Babylon executive, Jin, circles a bloodied, chained Passin. Jin complains bitterly about the disgusting smell of sweat and blood, wiping her hands as she delivers a psychological death blow. She knows exactly how to break a man who doesn't fear physical agony. She weaponizes love, Jin coldly reveals that Ati, the sick boy Passin, spent a decade of mercenary blood money trying to cure of leukemia, is in their total, merciless control. Babylon even broadcasts a live audio feed of Passin's torture directly to Jin-man's captured earpiece, manufacturing the perfect illusion of a failed rescue. If Passin wants to keep his dying boy breathing, he has absolutely no choice. He must become Babylon's personal attack dog. Back in Korea, the defensive line is slowly waking up to the nightmare. Jian and her heavily armed family desperately examine the encrypted emails sent by their supposed mole over the last year. A horrifying realization washes over the young CEO. The tiny, hidden signature mark at the end of the subject lines completely stops a week ago. Babylon didn't just capture Jin-man in a random ambush. They had completely hijacked the communication line, feeding the master tactician directly into a fatal snare. They realized the terrible truth far too late. The call isn't coming from outside the house. The monster has already been invited inside. Thousands of miles away, the ultimate betrayal is officially unleashed. Passin, driven by the desperate, blinding, agonizing need to save his child, turns his lethal skills against his own sworn comrades. He intercepts the fierce protector, Min-hye, on a desolate, dusty road. A catastrophic truck crash leads to a vicious, point-blank gunfight in the dirt. The fierce Code Red operative fights for her life, but the scene cuts away, leaving only a chilling confirmation call to Babylon's headquarters. Min-hye has been taken care of. The defensive perimeter is rapidly collapsing, brick by bloody brick. The nightmare finally breaches the impenetrable underground bunker. The heavy iron elevator doors unlock, and the trusted Muay Thai master steps inside the sprawling, subterranean shopping mall. Jan, Jinwoo, and Cholsung rush forward, expecting to greet a bruised, exhausted ally. Instead, they are met with a relentless, dead-eyed killing machine. Passin moves like lightning, brutally striking down the very people he once called family. Cholsung roars in absolute fury, charging the traitor with heavy strikes, but he is mercilessly beaten into the cold concrete. Jinwoo tries to intervene and is instantly, violently neutralized. Even the innocent, stuttering technician, brother, is cornered and attacked. Behind the scenes, the internal security system violently errors out, the locks flashing red as they are completely hijacked by Babylon's elite black hat hackers. Jian screams in the chaotic darkness, desperately begging her beloved master to stop, completely unable to comprehend the brutal, senseless betrayal. She yells his name, pleading for mercy, but Passin's eyes remain hollow, focused entirely on the horrifying ransom of his child's fragile life. He draws his weapon on the girl he swore to protect. The bunker has fallen, but the architect of this massacre still has one final, devastating move left to play. High above the subterranean carnage, Jin sits back and admires her absolute masterpiece. She explains the flawless game of chess to her subordinates. First, you separate the king from the amateur queen. Then, you take their most powerful knight, completely corrupt him, and send him back in as a deadly Trojan horse. You let the traitor steamroll the bishops and pawns from the inside. Now, with the security grid destroyed, she dispatches the ruthless assassin Q to collect the defenseless queen and force the king into an impossible, bloody endgame. But Jin's arrogant, self-congratulatory celebration is about to hit a brick wall. She sits at a smoky Korean barbecue restaurant, complaining bitterly about the cheap smell clinging to her expensive clothes, waiting for a highly anticipated corporate meeting. A man sits calmly across from her, quietly flipping sizzling meat on the grill, hiding a highly dangerous secret. It is Ahn Seong-byom, the retired Code Red operative, the very same man who just secretly allied with Jeong Jin-man in the shadows. When the devil thinks he has perfectly rigged the entire game, what happens when he casually sits down to dine with the very ghost preparing to cut his throat? Jian screams in the dark as cold steel presses violently against her skin. Her own protector, the man who trained her to survive, is now the monster holding her hostage. Passin's eyes are hollow, completely dead to her desperate pleas for mercy. He has traded her life to the ruthless Babylon Corporation for the safe return of his kidnapped child. But in a shadow war built on lies, betrayal is never a one-way street. The phone buzzes in Passin's trembling hand. It isn't Babylon calling to confirm the brutal trade. It is Jeong Jin-man. Through the static, a small, terrified voice calls out for his father. Ati is safe, completely out of Babylon's lethal grasp. Jin-man's voice drops to a chilling, absolute zero. He tells his old friend that he is the kidnapper now. If Pasin wants his boy to keep breathing, he must turn around and brutally protect the very girl he just prepared to sacrifice. The board has violently flipped. The hunt has just begun. Gunfire shreds the narrow underground corridors. Babylon's elite kill squads swarm the subterranean shopping mall like starved locusts, completely severing their escape routes. Jian sprints through the suffocating darkness, her lungs burning, dragging the stuttering technician, brother, alongside her. Sparks explode off the concrete walls as high-caliber rounds chew through the stale air. Pasin hangs back in the suffocating shadows, his assault rifle roaring as he furiously buys them time with his own blood. Every step toward the emergency exit demands a heavier, more terrifying toll. A bullet finds its mark. Brother stumbles, a wet, agonizing gasp tearing from his throat. Jian drags him forward, desperately refusing to leave him behind. Jin-man's chilling lesson echoes violently in her mind. If you lose an arm in a war zone, do not try to recover it. You must ruthlessly protect the one you still have. She refuses. She drags the bleeding boy to the heavy steel door of the final safe room, completely unaware that salvation requires a human sacrifice. Brother violently shoves her inside. He stays on the outside of the blast door. Jian slams her fists against the impenetrable metal, screaming his name, violently pleading with him to open the heavy lock. Brother leans his failing body against the cold steel. He softly thanks her for everything, whispering a final, heartbreaking command for her to simply go live. The muffled, sickening thud of execution round silences his voice forever. The tears stop falling, instantly replaced by a cold, apocalyptic rage. Jian wipes her face, staring at the emergency detonation switch. Brother designed this very room for one singular, devastating purpose. When you must escape, you burn the entire world behind you, so no one can ever follow. She flips the switch. A massive, catastrophic explosion rips through the underground facility. Walls of blinding hellfire consume the concrete corridors, incinerating Babylon's trapped mercenaries as their horrific screams echo through the choking smoke. Seongjo walks through the settling ash, smiling cruelly at the young girl. He tells her to look at the total slaughter she just unleashed. This is the absolute hell she must now live with. But burning the mall was merely a spectacular distraction. Miles away, in a sterile corporate boardroom, Babylon's executives celebrate their perceived victory. The ruthless executive, Jin, smiles proudly as her elite black hat hackers successfully extract what they believe is the highly coveted Murthehelp server. She confidently secures full managerial control of the underground empire from the global director, Chen. They plug the captured drive directly into their massive supercomputer. They didn't capture a server, they dragged a digital bomb directly into their own castle. The monitors violently flash red. Klaxons shriek as the false server critically overheats, triggering a catastrophic failsafe that completely disables power within a 1-kilometer radius of Babylon's headquarters. The elite fortress is instantly plunged into total, paralyzing darkness. While the executives panic, scrambling desperately to restore backup generators, Jian and Cheol-sung sit quietly in the shadows. Brother predicted this exact scenario. They swap the lines, using a hidden satellite uplink planted by their internal mole. Instead of Babylon taking Murthehelp's secrets, Jian is quietly siphoning decades of heavily guarded corporate blackmail directly out of Babylon's bleeding veins. Jin stares at the rebooted screen, his arrogant smile completely dissolving into pure dread. The captured server is entirely empty. The invincible corporate monster is suddenly bleeding from 1,000 invisible cuts. Even Jin's desperate attempts to bribe the retired operative, Ahn Song-bom, fall completely flat in a tense, heavily armed standoff at a smoky barbecue restaurant. Jin offers highly lucrative profit sharing and free weapons, demanding Songbem mobilize the Code Reds to capture Jin-man. Songbem refuses, proudly citing his fierce Korean ancestors who died fighting invaders. He stares dead into the executive's eyes and calls her a disgusting coward who hides behind a desk. Jin sneers, threatening to obliterate the entire restaurant, but the heavy clicking of hidden firearms echoes from the shadows. Songbyom's snipers already have their weapons painted directly on the executive's chest. The corporate suit learns a terrifying lesson about old soldiers. They never sit at a table unless they are fully prepared to flip it over in blood. Meanwhile, Babylon's own internal lies are violently unspooling. A nervous lawyer named Inseop asks far too many questions about a covered-up bus bombing. The deadly enforcer, K, corners him in a parking garage. He tells him a chilling story about how the most dense people in the field always die with a confused look on their faces, completely unaware of why they were just executed. He forces his way into his car, ensuring his silence forever. But you cannot bury every secret. The ruthless assassin, Q, intercepts a heavily damaged vehicle in the pouring rain. Babylon intentionally hid the truth from her, manipulating her blinding grief to turn her into an uncontrollable weapon. The executives are utterly terrified that if she ever discovers Jin-man didn't kill her younger brother, she will turn her lethal wrath directly back on them. When you build an empire entirely on deception, the most dangerous weapon in the world isn't a gun or a rigged explosive. It is the agonizing, undeniable truth. Because when the manufactured lies finally burn away in the fire, who will be left standing in the ashes? Blood drips onto the cold, unforgiving floor as Jeong Jin-man sits completely immobilized, bound tightly to a steel chair. Standing over him is Kusanagi Jin, a corporate monster who has hated him for 16 long years. She doesn't just want him dead, she wants to completely break him, sneering that his need to control everything is exactly why he is terrified right now. Jin orders the doctor in the room to radically increase the intensity of the torture, demanding they record his agonizing screams. Send a video to Jeong Jin so she knows, she snarls, wanting the young girl to witness the horrific pain she is putting her beloved uncle through. But pain is a language Jin-man speaks fluently, and this suffering is just the opening gambit in a much larger, deadlier game. Deep inside the underground bunker, Jian watches the horrifying footage of her uncle's suffering. It is a brutal psychological strike, meant to shatter her resolve, but her hardened allies refuse to let her break. She made her choice, a voice echoes in the dark, asserting that Jian must endure this heavy burden on her own, exactly as Jin-man would want for her. Meanwhile, Babylon's executives finally breach the surface of Murthehelp's true, terrifying scale. As their hackers initiate location tracking on the stolen servers, they uncover a sprawling, invisible army hiding in plain sight. 134 code reds active in Korea, 215 corporate-style code yellows, and over 700 highly trained operatives overseas. The executives realize with creeping dread that Jin-man hasn't been hiding at all. He has been secretly waging a massive, relentless guerrilla war, systematically stealing Babylon's clients and bleeding their global cash flow dry. But taking over this massive empire is completely impossible without the original architect's biometric data. Once Babylon extracts what they need, Jin-man's life will lose all value, and they will execute him without a second thought. The clock is ticking rapidly, and the executioner is already warming up. Jian refuses to sit in the dark and wait for her uncle to die. She initiates a terrifying game of digital Russian roulette, directly contacting Kusanagi Jin with the ultimate, apocalyptic leverage. Jian plays the highly classified audio files she successfully siphoned from Babylon's own servers, exposing the horrific truth that Jin intentionally orchestrated a massive bus bombing just to cover up a mercenary named Bale murdering a man named Jun. Jian delivers a bone-chilling ultimatum: release Jin-man immediately, or she will broadcast every vile atrocity Babylon has ever committed to the entire world. Jin scoffs at the threat, warning Jian that if she releases the data, she will effectively be pulling the trigger on her own uncle's head. If he dies, then you die too, Jian fires back, her voice echoing with the cold, absolute certainty of a hardened killer. The board completely flips. Jin panics, desperately attempting to violently crush the resistance before her superiors discover her catastrophic blunders. She bypasses all official protocol, illegally commandeering a heavily armed Mako-1 drone from Okinawa, and ordering an immediate, devastating airstrike on the Code Red's mountain stronghold in Gangwon-do. She rationalizes the extreme treason to her subordinates, stating they will simply tell the world that North Korea sent it. But the drone's missiles violently explode against the bunker's reinforced alloy doors, failing to make even a single dent in the defenses. Furious and completely out of time, Jin authorizes maximum security protocols and unleashes her deadliest weapon. She commands the ruthless assassin Q to infiltrate the facility, explicitly ordering her to kill every insect hiding inside and eliminate Jeong Jin-man. "We don't need her now," Jin commands with absolute malice. But Jian is already 3 steps ahead, executing a masterclass in psychological warfare. When Q finally corners Jin-man in the dark, raising her blade for the fatal kill, Jin-man doesn't run. Instead, she drops a truth bomb that halts the assassin in her tracks. "I was never the one that killed Jay," Jin-man tells the grieving sister. She explains that Kusanagi maliciously lied, weaponizing Q's immense grief over her younger brother's death, to turn her into a blind, obedient attack dog. Jin-man plays the intercepted audio of the bus bombing cover-up, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Babylon murders its own operatives and buries the evidence. The manufactured lies instantly shatter. Q, who reveals her real name is Takimoto Ichika, lowers her weapon, fully turning her lethal, unyielding wrath back toward the executives who manipulated her trauma. The entire sequence of chaotic events wasn't a desperate scramble for survival. It was a meticulously orchestrated trap. Jian and Jin-man had planned Operation Empty House from the very beginning. Jin-man intentionally allowed himself to be captured, knowing Kusanagi would be so blindly obsessed with extracting his biometric data that she would leave her flanks completely exposed. While Jin was distracted by torturing him, Jian rallied the Code Purples, secured the loyalty of the Code Reds, and systematically isolated Babylon's regular forces. "All we're doing is using her own playbook and turning it back on her," the team realizes, with grim satisfaction, as the steel jaws of the trap finally slam shut. The corporate hammer finally falls, but not on Murthehelp. Headquarters intercepts the leaked audio of the bus bombing. Kay receives an urgent, frantic call from Babylon Command, ordering him to abandon the assault and return to base immediately. That operation has nothing to do with Babylon, the voice strictly declares, officially cutting Kusanagi Jin loose to die alone. Inside the holding facility, total chaos erupts. Jin-man effortlessly slips out of his cell, a lethal phantom walking through the flashing red security alarms. Outside, the Code Reds blow open the main gates, having already buried the remnants of Babylon's ground forces under tons of heavy rubble in a nearby mine. They issue a strict command to their soldiers. They have only one target left, and it is Kusanagi Jin. Realizing she has been entirely abandoned by the corporation she killed for, Jin stands in front of the Situation Room, gripping her weapons with a crazed, desperate fury. "In the end, you're all you got, fucking alone," she spits, stepping out of the shadows to face the overwhelming swarm of approaching mercenaries. "The real negotiation begins now," she sneers, screaming at the ragtag army to come and get her as she opens fire. But the true, world-altering negotiation is happening quietly behind closed doors. Jin-man steps into the Situation Room, standing face-to-face with Chen, Babylon's global director, through the massive video screen. He doesn't ask for a surrender, nor does he beg for his life. Peaceful coexistence between Murthehelp and Babylon. "That's all I want," Jin-man declares calmly. Chen chuckles darkly at the absolute contradiction, mocking the absurd idea of lasting peace in a violent industry built entirely on profiting off human lives. But Jin-man holds the ultimate leverage, the highly classified server data that could destroy them all. He offers a tense, fragile ceasefire between the two empires. If Babylon accepts, Jin-man promises he will step away from Murthehelp completely, effectively retiring from the bloody game. Jin hears the corporate betrayal and screams at the digital screen in pure, unfiltered agony. "I did it all for the sake of Babylon. And now what? You're firing me," she wails, her entire reality fracturing. Chen's response is ice-cold and utterly devoid of empathy. "You were only ever loyal to yourself," he replies, permanently discarding her like a broken tool. "You pathetic little shits," Jin hisses, completely broken and surrounded by her enemies. The brutal war is officially over, but the resulting peace is razor-thin. Chen accepts the truce, but delivers one final, apocalyptic warning to Jin-man. If even the most trivial piece of data from that server ever leaks to the public, even something as insignificant as what a client had for dinner or the name of a client's dog, Jin-man, Jian, and everyone they have ever loved or worked with will violently disappear. Make sure you honor your end, Chen warns, his eyes dark with the heavy promise of future violence. We'll talk again, Jeong Jin-man. And you too, Jeong Jin, the director says before cutting the feed. The screens go black. The smoke slowly clears. Standing amidst the blood and rubble of their hard-fought victory, Jian looks at the man who dragged her into this beautiful, bloody nightmare. She turns to her uncle and asks him what the plan is now. Jin-man looks at the young girl who just brought a global superpower to its absolute knees, seeing the fierce, unyielding lion he always knew was hiding inside her. "You're asking me that?" he replies, a quiet, profound respect echoing in his exhausted voice. Jian doesn't hesitate for a single second. She isn't a scared child anymore. She is the undisputed CEO of an underground empire. Then now, listen up, Jeong Jin-man. The board is set. The old kings are dead, and a new queen has finally taken the throne. But in this world, peace is only ever a temporary illusion. If you want to survive the next hit, you know exactly what to do. Hit that subscribe button and leave a like if you made it out of this season alive. Drop a comment below with your theories on what Jian's first move as the undisputed CEO will be. Until next time, keep your eyes open and watch your back. Murthehelp is officially open for business.